Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins. We're here July 20, 2026. I keep saying the date just to ground myself. Where are we? Who are we? What time is it? And so if you haven't been to this podcast before, I invite you to definitely join us in the chat. Let us know that you're there. It sounds like my guest, Garret Kramer, is open to questions if they come up. And I'm super excited to talk with him. We had a conversation a while back. I'll go through that when I bring him on. I just wanted to make a few announcements that coming up on Beth of Fresh Air show on Friday, I'm going to be hosting Dagmar Stansova again for Denickeled 3. So we're going to go a little deeper into the nickel toxicity world, talk about PEA in particular, polyethanolamide. Try to say that 10 times fast. And then on Monday, I have Banjo Glass on for part 2 of looking at the culture and the world that he's in as a functional artist. And he's starting to break out of that as well. And then, Jackie K's in the house. Nice to see you. Thanks for the shout out about people leaving likes, which I often forget to say. And then coming up August 5th, I'm hosting an open house for my Journey Code coaching certification training. And for this one, I'm hoping to get people these are more rare souls, by the way. I'm very aware of them. I'm always calling the rare souls, who have already learned to say no to some extent, have created some boundaries in their life, and they know that there's something beyond that. If you had to train yourself to say no, it means that you are a helping spirit. You actually want to serve and be in the world like I know Garrett does. And so if you want to discover what's beyond that on the hero's journey, and you're called to contribute your gifts, create real transformation in people's lives, and be purposeful and support yourself and others on that path, then please do sign up for that. I'm going to share a link in the chat for the direct sign up link so you can get the Zoom details to join us either live or as a recording. And so if you're not familiar with Garret Kramer, I have been following him for a few years since I heard Andy Kaufman and Alec, Zeck sing their praises pre-pandemic. We're going to talk about where Garrett was at in that pandemic place. And so I'll just read his bio for you guys so you can get a sense of who he is if you're not familiar yet. Garrett is the founder of Inner Sports. He's a visionary who for nearly 3 decades has been providing transformative consulting services to athletes, coaches, actors, doctors, and business leaders. His extensive career also includes conducting workshops, day-long symposiums, and retreats for teams, organizations, universities, and schools. Having introduced the direct path of self-exploration to the high-performance community, Garrett has played a pivotal role in redefining the way we approach excellence, passion, and maximizing potential. He also now shares with global audiences his unique perspective on the consciousness-only model and its profound implications for creating a more harmonious world. Garrett lives in New Jersey, USA. I can tell by his accent and because he told me. His insights have appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Sports Illustrated, and Forbes, and he's appeared on major media platforms as well as the Golf Channel, which I think he's a fan of golfing. And he also has 3 transformative books, one called True Self, Notes on the Essence of Being. The next one's Still Power, Excellence with Ease in Sports and Life, and also The Path of No Resistance. It's funny, I was reading this, The Path of No, because I got no on the brain. Why Overcoming is Simpler Than You Think. And we're going to talk today about why you are the remedy. So without further ado, I'll bring Garrett on. Hello, Garrett. Welcome to the King Heroes podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my great pleasure. My great pleasure. Is there anything more you want to say by way of introduction before we get started?
No, that covers it just fine.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's a good bio. Actually, I really like it. People have a hard time writing bios. I have my own background in business, and maybe we'll get into entrepreneurialism as well as a subject. And but I'm curious, just as a first question to ask you, what was it that inspired you to get into this line of work when you had a pivot in your life, maybe going from doing something else? I don't know your pre-background to this.
I realized that this was strictly in the field of psychology back then, but I realized that um, something was something just didn't agree with me when I visited a well, I was a college hockey player. Let's start there. And we had several sports psychologists speak to our team in the 4 years that I played college hockey. And in each of those times, I literally wanted to get up and walk out of the room. I just felt like I was listening to mumbo jumbo that didn't make any sense to me. That was somewhat fraudulent, to be honest. I'm not saying the person was intentionally doing that, but and we can talk about what that was. And then when I stopped playing hockey, I picked up the game of golf and became very good at golf quickly, and went to visit a very well-renowned, still is, he's like 80 some odd years old now. I was 27 at the time. I'm 64 now, so you can only imagine. Oh, yeah, he's in his 80s. I went to Virginia to visit with him for 2 days, and I found the same thing again. And there was a pivotal moment in that discussion. Um, he was trying to convince me that I could choose to be happy. And there was something about this idea of choosing to be happy that didn't make sense to me. So I just very intuitively asked him if he was always happy. And he said, no, no one's always happy. I said, would you like to be? He says, yes, everyone would like to be happy. So then, wait, he was telling me you can choose to be happy, and he would like to be happy, but he's not always happy. So right there, he didn't even realize what he was saying. He didn't realize that we don't have the power to choose to be happy, but he was teaching me that we do, much like those sports psychologists had done when I was playing college hockey. So it's somewhat of a funny story, and I guess I was a little bit of a, wise ass when I was 27. We had a break, so it's 4 sessions over 2 days, and we had a break after this happened. So I called my fiance at the time, who's now my wife all these years, and I said, "This guy is just talking bullshit." And she goes, "Who are you to say that this guy's talking bullshit? You're this guy's walking with all these famous athletes and teams. You're you. Stop it." And I said, "No, matter of fact, I'm coming home. I'm leaving." And she says, "Come on, you've got to stay." So I agreed I would give the afternoon session a shot. But if that was the same, I was bolting. I was out of there. And it was worse. So I got in my car and I drove home to New Jersey from Virginia. And I didn't call Liz to tell her until I was halfway home. There was no cell phones then. So I had to use a payphone somewhere on the way. And I decided I was going to get halfway home. Then I'd call her because there's no turning back if I'm halfway home. Interestingly enough, she kind of softened and realized I wasn't so crazy. And we had a very brief discussion. And then the remaining 3 hours of the trip, I literally created inner sports right there in my head. I'm gonna open up a business where I work with young athletes, and at the time it was just athletes, and it wasn't even pro athletes. That wasn't even a possibility because I didn't have any degrees or anything in the field. But I'm going to work with pro athletes about intuition, about what they know in their heart to be true, and the freedom from which they can play from that intuition. And literally, we discussed it. Liz and I discussed it when I got home. My father thought I was literally batshit crazy. You don't know anything about this. You're a part-time high school teacher, coach, ice hockey coach, good golfer, yeah, but that's about it. You should not do that. Well, I did it, and it started to catch on when I was teaching, and the teams I was coaching were winning state championships, and I then got in with the New Jersey Devil hockey team here in New Jersey, the NHL team, and we won Stanley Cups, and my career was off to the races. So that's how it all started. Then I started writing books and all that. And then that's how it all started. Then later on, I realized that, I wasn't really talking about the mental game. I was really more talking about spirit and God, quite frankly, and who we are at our core. And that led me into an amazing journey of self-exploration. And that really started to predominate my work, I would say, in the last 15 years. So it started out, as I said, with sport teams, moved into organizations, businesses, families, and then really into traveling around the world giving workshops. So we would have 1 and 2 day workshops where I would basically do a talk in the beginning for about an hour, and then people would ask me questions for the remainder of the day. And that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Right. Amazing. Yeah. Questions and answers are so fertile, right? When there's somebody genuinely asking the question and they're open and ready for some new information or new insight. And the whole psychology world can also be so misleading because to me, it's akin to just pushing furniture around on the Titanic and explaining things and then thinking, okay, well, I got that, but not actually doing any work to transform your life in the process. So yeah, I love all of that. And that choosing to be happy, that's really poignant, right? That, there is a certain decision. I have a friend whose father had been really unhappy most of his life, and he literally drew a line in the sand and decided to be happy. And he did make a big change, apparently, in the process. I of course don't know him personally, but so decisions are powerful. But that happiness is something that you're exactly right. It's not there all the time, and you can otherwise just get into fooling yourself about that.
It actually, Beth, I would describe it a little differently, although the feeling behind what I'm going to say is the same as what you just said, but it actually is there all the time. It just appears not to be. It just gets covered up by our belief system, by our indoctrination, our conditioning, our training. So when that person's father appeared to make a decision, I'm just going to be happy, I think that was more of a realization of who he truly was than a decision. So he had the realization, wait a second, I am happiness at my core. I am peace. I am love. I am happiness at my core. These are words we use to describe the true self: peace, love, and happiness. That is who I am at my core. Now that can get covered up by life sometimes, but that's still who I am. That's still what I am. So happiness is thought to be a feeling, but that's unhappiness. Happiness is more of the core of your being, and nothing can extinguish that. It can get veiled, covered up, shrouded, and it often does, and that's okay. But it's really knowing that that is what we are at our core that is important. And I would say that's more the realization that man had than the decision. The decision would have a shelf life. The realization's forever.
Nice. That's beautiful. Yeah, I would call it happiness with no opposite, right? And for the most part, people are chasing the happiness, and then they get disappointed and they lost their happiness, and then they get happy again, and they're, oh, woo, I did it. And
well, they think that that's happiness, but that's more like relief.
Mm-hmm.
So they chase, and we're taught to do this. We're taught to seek our identity, our well-being outside of ourselves. So we get on that chase, that treadmill, so to speak, and we seek and we seek and we seek, and then sometimes we find, and then because we're no longer seeking, we experience relief. But that's not because of what we find. That's because we're no longer seeking. But no one makes the connection. So they think it was because they won the championship. But no, that's not what brought the relief. What brought the relief was the end of seeking. So because they think it was the championship or the relationship or the substance or the possession and not the end of seeking, again, they get back on the treadmill again. And then the same process repeats itself. That's the life experience for 99% of people, sadly. I'm trying to kind of point that out, because we're all going to realize it. As I tell young people, let's not wait till we're on our proverbial deathbed to realize it. You can realize that now.
Yeah, amen to that. One of the things that I help people do in my work is to distinguish between high emotions, where there's a lot of attachment. They're happy emotions, courage, acceptance, and peace. They're taught to be a destination, like you need to work to get to peace, and then you're good. And you can see, controllers are they're going to be pumping peace in a really big way, right? That's sort of the next level elixir, quote unquote, that they're going to try to feed us. And so like when you see that high emotion is actually full of suffering, right? It mirrors the low emotion. You can't have one without the other. They fear and courage. They make a chord. And you can't, you literally have to pretend and hang on by your fingernails to this emotion of peace. But I always say freedom is off of the emotional map. The word I'm using the word freedom for happiness. So it's kind of the indescribable. Just have to put a word in there so we can have a conversation about it. But that's a very big revelation for people when they see that the high emotion is not the goal.
Yeah. There's only one of those. There's only one goal, and in my opinion, that's the knowing of self, knowing who we are. That's the goal.
Amen to that
journey. There's no other goal, and that's not a material goal. That's all material goals are a cheap knockoff of the true goal or the true purpose of life, which is the knowing of self. You could add once there's a knowing of self, to express that in the world. You could, that's a purpose B or 1A or whatever you would say. So it would be to know thyself, and then peace, love, happiness, freedom, another word, and then to express that wholeheartedly and fully in the world. That's what Jesus meant when he said to be in the world but not of the world. He wanted us to know who we were, and you could use those words that we've been using, or you could use infinite and eternal consciousness. You could use God's infinite being. He wanted us to know that we were not of the world. We were not the body. We're not an object in truth. And then once you've got a good feel for that, to jump into the game of life and express that fully. And you'll see the most courageous people, the most old people, the most loving people have and are doing that. They're in the world freely, free from the fear of death, especially.
Right. Oh, there's lots in there. You're reminding me that we've been studying Gurdjieff lately in the House of Free Will with my colleague Micah Ellers, and he says you can do anything, right? Be successful, seek accomplishments, all of that kind of thing, as long as you can remember yourself. Otherwise, it's a distraction away from that, and it's that, like you say, the suffering of seeking. And we just did a video today in the House of Free Will. It's my private podcast that is all about impressions, and the impressions, how they like the goal being, because Gurdjieff will say you need to isolate yourself, but it's not that you isolate yourself from the world. It's exactly what you were saying. It's that you have your consciousness is so solid inside yourself that all of that doesn't throw you off and give you a bad day, or it doesn't. It's not determining or conditioning who you actually are.
Right. Peace is not found in the absence of upset or grief or trauma. Peace is found in the presence of those things. If we are conditioned to believe that we need to fix all those things, eradicate them as if they could go somewhere, which is the funniest thing. There's nowhere for them to go. There is no outside of us. So where are they going to go in the first place? But in order to find peace, you need to fix, you need to cure, you need to remedy all of those things. But this is completely ridiculous. That is all built on the false notion, which is much as psychology, as we were indicating before, that we are a separate psyche to begin with. So that we need to get that clear who we are first, and then we can have some substantive discussions about all these things. But without that starting point of we are consciousness, we are God's infinite being, the true self, we are just going to be floundering, and we're going to be, again, teetering between seeking and relief. That's most people would say that's the human experience, that journey of teetering on seeking and suffering, as you said, and then finding relief. But it absolutely does not have to be. That is the human experience, but that's not the spiritual experience. That's not the true experience, and you're not limited to that, and you don't have to be held down by that. So, I don't think there's anything more important to look at, and from there, from the knowing of self, then all these other ancillary things kind of kick in. You wouldn't seek happiness. You wouldn't seek medicines. You wouldn't use all these other things have easily kind of fall into place. So I think having the order right is important. Know thyself first, and then we could look at these other things, these other issues, if in fact they're still there. And often they won't be.
Right, right. I like your quote, leave moods alone. Do not cope, carry on. Do you want to unpack that?
Well, you would have to ask yourself, if you were to come to me and say, what do I do with my moods? I would say, you're better off doing nothing with your moods. Now, unpacking that would be that I would somehow, my role would be to somehow indicate to you, show you, or at least have you consider that moods do not arise within the body. Feelings do not arise within the body. Thoughts do not arise within the body. Sensations don't arise in the body. Experiences don't arise. They arise within the true self, consciousness. So I would ask you from a series of questions, which are obvious. Has anyone ever found a thought in the head? It sounds preposterous, but no. Of course, the answer is no. Neurologists can't even locate the neural pathways by which people have thoughts. They can't even, or through which people become conscious, because people aren't conscious. So consciousness is conscious. So you would have to see first that moods arise within the whole we call consciousness, or you. Once that's clear, because there's no outside of the whole or outside of you, then it would become obvious that moods are made of you, consciousness. So where are they going to go? And plus, they're made of you. It's like asking the sea to try to kick out a turbulent whirlpool. The turbulent whirlpool is made of the sea. It has no power to damage the sea. Whether the whirlpool is turbulent, violent, or whether it's placid, or whether it's not even there, the sea is the same. The sea remains the same. So you would have to see that the mood has no ability to impact you, to damage you, to hurt you, to, if you were an athlete, to cause you to play bad. So it would make no sense to try to kick it out or beat it. So you would then leave it alone, get on with life, and the mood would take care of itself, much like the whirlpool in the sea will, if we don't fuck with it. Excuse my French. That's just that. So again, if you're programmed to believe, however, that the mood arises within the body, then it will be perfectly logical for you to see a therapist and to try to elevate your mood. But again, this is that never-ending treadmill we just talked about. You would have to be the body in truth for that to have any, for that to work, and that's just not the fact. It doesn't line up. So,
Yes, it's interesting as you use the metaphor of the whirlpool. I wrote down the word spiral because that's exactly what moods do. They spiral up, they spiral down. Up is, of course, it can be nicer or more desirable. We get more attached to that. But that whole thing, I love what you say. Like what are the moods, not other than yourself? And so by trying to smash them, now it just doesn't work. Practically, it doesn't work. When you try to get rid of a mood, you're literally strengthening the mood. You're injecting energy into the mood by suppressing it, even if it appears to go away, but you really just jammed it deeper away from your awareness. And our culture has given the mood all of the authority. It's like, well, I'm not in the mood for this, and I'm not in the mood for that, or my mood this, so I can't that. And it's one of the decisions I made in my life that the moods, okay, step aside. I'm doing this anyway.
absolutely. Now,
Right.
imagine growing up, which we did, because we were taught this as we were subject to this indoctrination also about moods and other so-called internal experiences. We then gave them power, as you're saying, that they never had. What is it going to do to us? Nothing. And name a little kid. My grandson sometimes has bad moods. I could see him, but they're so short-lived. And because he doesn't give them any weight. He hasn't been programmed yet, and hopefully he never will be, to give that mood, that thought, that feeling, that experience, that malady, that symptom. He hasn't been taught yet to give that power. It doesn't have power. It has no power. Just like, using the analogy again, the whirlpool in the sea has no inherent power. The sea remains the sea, no matter what. And that's actually our experience. If we were to look at our experience, just very simply, if you were to ask someone, hey, you've been through some trying things, some trying moods, how'd you come out of it? I'm good. Yeah, I'm all right. Everyone will say that. Everyone. No one says, oh, yeah, that mood wrecked me. It destroyed who I am. No one says that. Everyone says, no, I'm okay. I'm good. In fact, I think most people would even say, I'm glad it happened. Like, I wouldn't even change it. So our experience is quite different from what our conditioning is telling us, has told us. And again, that's what I saw way back when, as a college hockey player, and then when I was visiting that psychologist. There was something about the paradigm that just didn't add up to me, and I wasn't going to buy in just because these people had diplomas on their walls. It just wasn't in my nature to do that. They didn't know more than me just because I was a 19-year-old hockey player who was, a good athlete. No, I'm not going for it. And if you're speaking mumbo jumbo, I'm leaving. I'm not interested. I probably could have been a little more respectful back then, but I just left. So, yeah, this is an essential distinction we're making here. And I think this distinction carries a lot of weight in almost every aspect of life.
Yeah, exactly. It's relevant across the boards. And so how do you, if you had to unpack it, how did you gain this knowledge that, about your true self, about moods, about knowing don't, like cope and wrestle with your moods or take this or take that to put an end to it?
I didn't gain it. I think that what happened was I realized at a relatively young age that the way most people are taught to live life wasn't working for me. at a relatively young age, younger than 30, I was just fortunate to realize that there's something missing here, or there's something veiled here that I need to take a look at, because this can't be right. This can't be right. Now, I did have, I was very fortunate that my mother was way ahead of her time in two areas of life. She was 19 years old when I was born. My father was 21 or whatever. And so I wasn't fortunate that I had a good home life, but I was fortunate that my father was a fantastic athlete and coach. Hard driving guy, but that's okay. That's what he knew, and there was some good that came out of that too. My mother, on the other hand, was ahead of her time, both spiritually and health-wise. So she was an incredibly interested person in health, natural health. When my parents got divorced, my mother dated Gary Null for a while and worked for Gary Null, which is crazy. And then my mother was also did some workshops with a spiritual teacher named Alan Cohen, who, I have this book somewhere. It's just worth, just for the fun of it, looking at this book. This is a gift my mother gave to me when I was. It's still taped together. It's taped together by duct tape. The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore by Alan Cohen, and the pages are.
Can you hold it up one more time?
I'm sure there's other versions of this that are more up to date, but this, I don't know, it's 1970, 1981 actually. But so my mother did workshops for him. He lived in the same town my mother moved to when my parents got divorced, and she did workshops with him. So I was very fortunate that my father was a coach and athlete, and he ran a skating rink. That's how I got into hockey. And then my mother was very ahead of her time as far as natural health and spirit, which is amazing, actually. So I was very lucky. Interestingly enough, though, while I'm the oldest of three, while my sister, who's the youngest, is very much on the same path as me, our brother has taken a much different path, which is interesting because clearly he grew up with the same set of parents. So it's interesting, which is a source of some upset for us, for my sister and me and my family, because so you can only imagine, but such is life. So I was very fortunate, let's put it that way. Well, again, I think from the outside, people may think that I wasn't fortunate because the household was quite turbulent, violent at times, even. But when I look back on it, it was I got incredibly lucky for both of my parents and how I picked up on their skills. So I was very, very fortunate. And sport has been a big part of my life. I'm a good player, good athlete. My kids were all college athletes. My grandson's already, you could see it. But my mother's impact on the spirit side and on the health side was really what made the difference. No question.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Isn't it incredible how you can have all the same influences and turn out so vastly different? I was saying on my last Breath of Fresh Air that I was raised as an only child, but I had two siblings, right? Like, but there's nothing like me. I have some relationship with one of them now, but it's okay. Speaking of natural health, maybe one question to preview it in terms of just that sense that something's missing. I can recollect this from my very first memories, like something's not right here. Something is, I was very aware of people putting on facades and, nobody really wanting to be real, and God forbid you were real. They didn't like that. And, just expressing exactly, where you're at and who you are wasn't something acceptable. And that something's missing is a kind of sacred beacon of sorts that people can easily again suppress, right? We don't have a lot of support for that when something's missing, especially a child. And So were there other guides or other methods or other anything that you used to cultivate what you got through your mother?
Um, what happened? Yeah, yeah, the answer is yes. And right when I was in the middle of that starting inner sports journey, as I described before, Liz was reading "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff" by Richard Carlson. Sorry, oh my gosh, Richard Carlson. Do you know the books, the series of books, "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff"?
Oh, the title for sure, but I don't know the books. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I would say around that time, it was a bestseller. Richard just killed it with the first "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff" book. And for the reasons I described before, I wasn't a fan of self-help books, obviously. But I think she wasn't home one day, and I decided, oh, what's this woman that I'm very interested in and going to marry reading? Let me check this out. So I started reading this book, and there was something about this. It was, it was a series of not strung together individual stories about different aspects of your life where you shouldn't sweat the small stuff. And there was something about the overriding message that really rung true to me. And without Liz even knowing this, I somehow tracked down Richard Carlson's phone number. There was no internet then. I must have called information. I don't know, because I think it said, like, in the acknowledgement, he lived in Walnut Creek, California. I remember this. And I called the number, and lo and behold, he answers the phone. His home number, he answers the phone. I end up having a 2.5-hour conversation with Richard Carlson, this famous psychologist, author of "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff." Here's little old me. And in every acknowledgement, all three of my books, I talk about this because it was such a pivotal moment in my life. Not only did Richard listen to me and tell me, my God, you're such a fast study, he asked me questions like he was interested in me. He gave me time. He gave me love. He opened his heart to me. And I had never experienced that before in my life, especially from a so-called expert or whatever, an elder, because Richard probably was about 15 years older than me. And I was so moved by this conversation. This guy, literally, in the middle of the day, 2.5 hours, we're speaking, that I promised him I was going to pay this forward for the rest of my life. And I have done my best to do that. This is why I offer people conversations. These days, very rarely will people take you up on it. They think you have an ulterior motive these days. It's horrible. And my only motive is to open up my heart to someone else. And it could be someone I vehemently disagree with. I'll still do it. And I've gotten criticized for this. I have people telling me you can't do that. Let's say I don't know, people get the wrong idea. I mean, it's sad. All I'm doing is opening up my heart and offering to have a discussion, to come to some meeting of the minds with people, whether they agree or disagree with me. Anyway, at the end of the conversation with Richard, I said to him, hey, I want to come out and work with you. Can I come out and work with you? And he said, listen, I got to go on a book tour right now. So we can wait about between 3 and 4 months, or I can introduce you to my mentor and you can go meet with him. I'll set it up. I'm like, what? Are you serious? He's like, yeah. So 3 weeks later, I was in George Pransky's office in McConnell, Washington. George and Linda Pransky were Richard's teachers. And that started a relationship with George and Linda and Richard to the day. Look, George and Linda are both still alive. Richard unfortunately passed away of a hemorrhage in an airplane when he was 42 years old. Very, very sad. And Richard was a mentor and a friend the rest of our lives, when rest of his life to me. So I would say Richard first, and then George and Linda and Keith, who worked with George and Linda, Keith Blevins. And then I have colleagues who all of us kind of learned from George and Linda, and Jamie Smart is one of them, a dear friend of mine, and others, Claire Diamond, Ali Scott. So there's people along the way that I've shared with and kind of grown in this business together. Yeah, the answer is yes.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, the hero's journey is replete with mentors, right? You're going to need guides, and then when you get the goods, you're going to need to be a guide, right? That's how you don't keep knowledge that you don't give away. And I love that you engage in conversations even when there's not agreement, which is the most powerful. It's, in fact, when there's disagreement, I think I'm the same as you. I will always try to engage. Hey, would you like to speak together? And
yeah, I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read what I wrote about Richard in my last book. It opens up the acknowledgement. Many years ago, a young seeker, aspiring teacher, coach, and author, me, thanked a well-known teacher, coach, and author named Richard Carlson for giving me so much of his time. Richard replied, Garrett, there's no time. There's only love. So writing this book vividly revealed this truth. So that's how the acknowledgments of my last book opens.
That's beautiful. Can you show the book?
Oh, okay. Sorry. This is a beat up version. So this is the last book.
I like the beat up versions better. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
So yeah, Richard was a special man. His wife, actually, Christine, is special still. Without him answering that phone, I don't know where I would be. It's ridiculous how fortunate that was.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've had lots of those experiences where now it's easier with the internet these days but I did end up finding someone's phone number and I called them and they answered, had a similar experience. They weren't on the internet. They weren't doing no emails, no social media, no nothing. I won't get his name off the top of my head, but another point that was just so poignant, what you brought up, was the interest, right? When someone takes an interest in you, it can be kind of uncommon, unfortunately, right? People don't have the bandwidth. They're self-consumed. They've got their own life, their own problems, their own things to deal with. And extending interest to someone requires that you have some inner resource, right? That you have something to give back, to just be there present for someone else. And it is like magic when you apply interest to a child or anyone that's trying to grow. It is definitely food for that.
I think it's very true. I think it's obviously, for most people, very easy when it comes to their own family, their own children especially. I think it's easier even if it comes to a child. Oh, I hope it is. When it comes to a child especially. I think it becomes a little more, then it's somewhat easy when it comes with a like-minded person, or someone maybe who you're attracted to even, or something. But I think that's all not a good thing. I think the issue that you're describing is a lack of understanding of self. I think that everyone, in order to help humanity, so to speak, you have to understand, truly help humanity, not put yourself first. Because you cannot help humanity if you put yourself first. I mean Garrett first or Beth first. I don't mean the true self, but you know what I mean. In order to help humanity, you have to understand that you share your being with the totality of humanity, not just your children. It's obvious that you share your being with your children. That's easy. It's somewhat easier, as I said, with like-minded people or even young children. But you have to really understand at a foundational level that you share your being with everyone and everything. That's the first step. And Richard Carlson knew that. It's the only reason he would take that time with me. There's no circumstantial reason that in the middle of a busy day, he took 2.5 hours to speak to this young punk from New Jersey. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He knew that. And this is why, to you, it becomes interesting, even when you share a moment with someone you disagree with, because you may disagree. You and I could disagree, but we share a being, and that's going to trump everything. And that's what we've forgotten. This is why during the so-called pandemic, when someone took a vaccine, which I clearly disagree with this behavior. I don't know that I could disagree with much more than that. Well, there's some things maybe, but that's up there. That when people were sick after doing that, got sick, we opened our house to those people. We searched for protocols of how to help them. It didn't stop me from speaking up about my feelings on that vaccine. No way. I'm doing that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to turn away from those who made this fatal mistake. I'm going to do whatever I can to help them.
That's beautiful.
But that comes because I sat there years ago, and thanks to Richard, I explored the nature of who we are, and we are a singular being. We are not separate beings. We are a singular being with 8 billion perspectives, you could say, but we're still one being. And that's even a concession. I could argue it's one perspective, but we'll come off the perch of purity and say we're one being, God's being, with 8 billion perspectives. That's what we are, and we're one, singular, not two, and not separate. And that ultimately is what we have forgotten. It's funny, Beth, every time during the pandemic, going back to those times, I don't mean real pandemic when I say pandemic. I'm referring to a point in time. I found that those who were standing up for health freedom, what I really saw in that group initially was a knowing that they were not separate, that we are not separate. It was the underlying thing that I noticed, not that they had their views on health that I agree with or whatever. It was that they knew, it was a real understanding of who they were. That was the core of it. And that's why there was so few. That's why there was so few. And that's not to criticize or be judgmental of those who didn't have that understanding. In fact, some of the most impressive to me right now are those who made the mistake and are now seeing through that mistake. That is an incredible, that's someone that deserves all of our credit, all of our love. That's a phenomenal thing to do. So those are the most impressive people right now to me, actually. Nice.
I love that. Back to lacking understanding and interest, being able to take an interest in other people that, if you don't actively seek to understand, then you're not going to. And I was thinking about this. I was actually going to do a seminar on it, but I felt like it was maybe not the right time for some reason, but that, we can really try to figure out other people. Say you're having a problem in a relationship, and then your mind goes to work trying to, like, what's their problem? What's wrong with them? Where are they going wrong? Where did they get off track? How are they harmed before? And that's creating this weird way of seeing and behaving in the world. And I thought about it, and it's such a fruitless endeavor because we don't even understand ourselves. How can you begin or even pretend to understand the other? And that's a time saver when you're not at work all the time trying to figure people out, which is program driven, by the way.
Oh, for sure. I'll go to this book again. Sorry, and I didn't write the things I wrote the acknowledgement, but this quote opens up this book. It's not my quote. It's a quote from Ramana Maharshi, a famous consciousness only teacher, non-duality teacher. He says, your own self-realization is the greatest service you can render the world. That's it. I mean, it's here. It's not there. It's my oldest son is going through a little bit of a thing right now, apparently. And I can get lost in that and really make some mistakes. Luckily, I kind of know the signs when we're getting lost in something like that, when we're getting lost in the material, which I'm happy to speak about. But the thing is, once I kind of take a pause and come back home, come back here, so to speak, I really see that this is not about his journey. This is mine. Every time. It's all your journey, my journey. I don't even know if he has a journey. I don't even know if you have it. I can only know that I have a journey. I have experiences. I can't know about anyone else. I can only know that this is my journey. And that's not selfish, because once I see that it's my journey, so to speak, I can then find my baseline. I can unveil, stop the seeking, as we said before. And then I'm actually in a better position to help him on that journey, to love him, to support him, to be present with him. But if it's about him, it's about me. It's always about me. Not that it's in a selfish way. Once I see that it's about my journey home, now I'm in a better position to support others.
That's it.
A vital understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been saying this a lot these days around the nurturer king. When I wrote my book, I wrote about my dad. He had a lot of that in him. And it's exactly the full circle, what you're describing, that when you truly, now my dad's story is a little bit different, not to say that is what it was, but when you're truly engaged in seeking to know yourself and drop the illusions and drop the denial and just have the, like what actually Gurdjieff would call terror of seeing yourself, right? It's a terror when you see like the circus is even diminishing what can be those real things. And then you care, and then you can really truly care for the other. That's the thing. When you drop all the, I notice this when my son gets upset. He's quite stable, and when he gets upset, it's in higher energy. It's more like passion and anger and those kind of things, rather than getting depressed, which is it's good in a way. And I can feel myself pulled in, and I want to fix him, and I want to tell him stuff, but I'll just turn it around and go like, what program am I running right now? Yeah. What does that bring up in me? And if I can get a lot of those layers off, there's often a point of connection, deep connection with him, not me trying to change his mood or get him into a different headspace or, do something differently. Although, I have tried all of that, of course. I'm not, not going to say I haven't, but it really ends up being the most care that I could give of him is that I let my own programs go. So I just wanted to say hi to Mr. Steve Mercer in the chat. He says, we are to God that which a cell is to the body, exercising autonomy while requiring communion. I find that really beautiful. That's actually quite copacetic with Gurdjieff as well. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm reading. How come, what's his name?
I'm calling him Steve. I hope he doesn't mind. I don't think he's incognito. Yeah.
Well, just wondering why God is in quotes. That's the first question I would have. And then
sometimes just for emphasis, but yeah, I get.
It could be okay. Just for emphasis, that's cool. So I would have a lot. This could take a while. I'm very careful to, in my opinion, I don't, the conditioning that there is a separate God is a very perilous one and not good for humanity. It's actually the because so I'm very leery of quotes that indicate that we are to God. Now maybe that's why there's quotes, because this could appear that there's a separate God that we are something to. So that's all I would say. The rest of it kind of makes sense. We're one with and free from, and both free from anything that arises, just like the whirlpool. It's one with the what's like the sea. It's one with the whirlpools, but free from the damage, the so-called damage. They can't do damage, so it's free from the whirlpool. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. But I do think, since I brought it up, the idea of a separate God is a real sticky one.
Right. That's the indoctrination, right? Like that's the whole churchianity kind of culture is all God must be separate. I remember when I was kind of reclaiming Christian roots for a short 5 minutes of my life in the last 5 years, 6 years, I guess. And I was noticing how much oneness showed up in the Bible. Like, I and my Father are one. You can barely open a page in the New Testament without finding evidence for oneness. So I'm like, oh, hey guys, what about oneness? And they're like, you're out of here. I don't want to be your friend anymore. I'm breaking up with you. Like this.
Well, it's so powerful that even though, so think about that. I and my Father are one, which the Bible claims Jesus said. So let's just go with that, which is fine with me. We don't know, but it's cool to say. I don't have a problem with that. So Jesus said, I and my Father are one. And instead of looking at in my opinion, what Jesus was saying is, we are one with God. Jesus, it's now that Jesus and God are one, but not you and me.
Right.
So Jesus, I and my Father are one. So he was trying to, and in order to be one, you are one. You're one and the same. You're not two who come together to be one, because then you're still two. You are one. You are it. You are it. I am the way, the truth, and the life. God is the essence of all things. It's all there. The conditioning that there is a separate God that we pray to is a creator, all these things that nobody has any evidence for. No evidence. No one's ever experienced God creating anything. Then someone will say, well, I see the flowers. Well, okay. That's not evidence that God created the flowers. That's evidence that you are experiencing flowers. You are experiencing flowers, whatever. So we live in a world of belief, which is just indoctrination. To believe is to not know. It's to be taught something. And one of the things that I think is very important, and I encourage people, my kids, those that I work with all these years, is to live by your own direct experience, not by what someone says is true. So if you've experienced a separate God, a creator God, which no one has, then fine, but you haven't. If you've experienced an outside of consciousness, outside of the whole, then there's an outside. But if you haven't, which again, have never met anyone who has experienced an outside of the whole, then everything happens within the whole and is made of the whole. So we are actually a singular being. All evidence points to the fact, if you really want to get crazy, that right now, I am having this conversation not from the perspective of Garrett, but from the perspective of consciousness. There is no actual Garrett, if you really want to get crazy. Now, you could, again, come off the perch of purity and say that God needs Garrett so it can know the material, all these concessions that are made to explain these things. But in truth, and I read about this in this book, all evidence points to the fact that we are having this conversation from the perspective of consciousness, not individual separate entities. And that's wild if you really want to look at it. Like you could, and anybody can do these experiments. I mean, is this world happening outside of you, or right now are you looking at the inside? And this is a slight concession, the inside of your own mind. Which one? I would guarantee it's the latter. All of this is happening within consciousness, not separate from it, not outside of it, not at a distance from it. You can, like, I just heard someone, my window's open over here, and I just heard a voice. I think Liz is going to the store or something. It's at the garage underneath me. Did that voice happen out there, or did it happen here? It clearly happened here, not out there. There is no out there. If everyone knew, and I'm going to use another metaphor here, Beth, if everyone knew that, like a dream at night that happens within your mind, and you lay sleeping soundly in bed, nothing can damage you. The dream is happening in your mind. It seems real while you're in the dream or having the dream and in the dream. If everyone knew the same thing was happening now, right now, the world would know peace in a second. No one would take this stuff seriously. Everyone would kind of elevate back to love. It's a big illusion, and we've taken it to be real, and it's fucked. It's crazy. Yeah.
Just back to Steve's comment, so one of the ways that knowledge can be misused, abused, totally misunderstood is people go into megalomania with it. I am God. I'm the supreme. I'm sovereign over this, and this is also wrong knowledge, which is why I love this metaphor about cells to the body, right? Like I'm God to my skin cells. Now I burnt myself the other day at having a pan of whatever coming from the oven, and it was like an apocalypse for these guys, right? Like there's it was a moment for them. There was some death. There's some few funerals going around, but it didn't touch me. Just to milk that metaphor, and then he clarified that God. I know that that's a typo there, in quotations, is so the reader can interpret God as they wish, because it's one of those crazy words people get triggered by because of the indoctrination. And he said, I agree with him that there's not a separate God. I believe we're connected to source, and transcendence is an apropos
process, maybe apropos process.
Process.
Well, I actually respectfully disagree with you. I think that I am God is an appropriate comment. I think it's using words. It's about as I am is the name of God. I am literally means I am. That's the Christian name for God.
It's just that gets abused, right? Then they turn into these, like, again, megalomaniacs, like, I'm God, and
that's because,
with no humility, right?
Yes, but I think that's because the common definition of God is no one has ever experienced that. So I think that's because of what God is a creator. God is the Almighty. God is all these things. God is supreme. When that's the lie. So God, if I was to define God, what is your definition of God then? And again, any definition of God I give would be provisional, subject to change based on my experience. But the definition I would give to God is the infinite and eternal space in which all things appear and out of which all things are made. Now, and that is you. That is you. You are that space. The entirety of creation is happening within you. Now, I'm saying you, but what I really mean is us, our singular being, God's infinite being. Seen from that lens, what's that?
Like all the words fail at some point, right? Like even define God, it's going to be, you can't. It's the indescribable. You can kind of make placeholders People ask me, what is freedom? Because that comes up a lot in my work. Could you want your freedom more than you want to hold on to that torturous thought or feeling? And they'll ask me, could you define that? And I'm like, no, actually, I won't define it for you. And then it has to be left, so then that's where the words can go in circles. And I think people can attribute meaning to it. Like I'm the ruler, I'm I'm the creator, like I created this whole universe. And like in essence, you're absolutely correct. But there's still like a hierarchy of existence. And like these cells are not my God. I'm the God of these cells. Right? That's a whole relative definition.
I think that this, I love that we're having the discussion. I think it's a really important discussion that we could go back and forth on. And I just think it's so important. I also think the words are important. I think that I do think describing these things is very difficult. It's writing them is even harder. But I do, and I'm not saying I'm right about this, and I don't want anyone to think I'm right or just believe what I say at all. But if you're asking me, or if we're just talking about it, I do think we can get close using words. Yes, words are used to describe the lie. That's the problem with words. So what I mean by that is words are used to describe the appearance of duality. Without the appearance of duality, we wouldn't need words. Silence would do, obviously. So, and that's why silence is silence, let's say in intimacy, is it's clear that you share a being with your partner, or even a young child, or my grandson, like silence, holding him, reaching his hand to me or something. It's obvious we share a being. We don't need to discuss it. So that's where you're right about words, because words are used the whole dictionary is designed to describe the illusion of duality, because we need to put words to the lie, which is the matrix, which is hilarious if you think about it. That said, I do think we could use those words and almost play a trick on this illusion of duality and use them to point back to the truth. So when I say I am God, or we are God, I think this may sound stupid or like arrogant to some people, or blasphemous. I think it's blasphemous to say we are not God. I think it's the opposite. To say we are not God limits God. That's blasphemy. To say that we are actually separate entities, human beings, not being, human beings, separate human beings, individuals, that's blasphemy. That belief, that lie has led to every calamity ever known. Again, if we knew we shared a being, we were a singular being, call that being God. That's who we are. We would have no conflict. That's a paradigm of unity, of love. That is not a paradigm of conflict. So that's why this book is called True Self, because I'm giving my evidence through story, through analogies, through my life situations, that no, we are this singular being, and I am not afraid to call that being God, because if in fact I am right, or in the ballpark, that God is this infinite eternal space in which all things appear and out of which all things are made, that has to be what we are. We are looking within that space now. This isn't outside. The evidence points that it can't be separate, it can't be outside. It can't be, if you look at it closely. I think we should. I think we should. We could, like I said before, I think that, just take something that you and I really agree on. We agree on a lot of things, but like, just take people who think there's believe in germ theory. Take that for instance.
Yes, let's get into that. Could I preempt it with a
Sure.
question just to introduce that,
Yeah.
and then we'll get back to this. Steve said an apophatic, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a process of discovering something by identifying what it is not. Kind of like neti neti. Are you familiar with that?
Sure,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
that's, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Path of finding truth by knowing what it isn't. And
That's the journey. That's right there. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. That's beautiful. And I'm always so curious. I've got an anthropologist in me. I'm so curious. Like, where were you at in your life when 2020 hit? When lockdowns hit? When all of a sudden there was a boogeyman virus out there, and everybody, within months was getting invited. By the way, we shouldn't say the V word too much. That's censorable. Just so you know, I didn't give you any preemptive warning, so I'll say poison injections or whatever,
Wow.
jabby jabs.
Right.
Just to preserve the channel. I already lost one of my YouTube channels.
Oh, sorry. Jeez.
Yeah, thank you. And so what was your life? What was happening for your life, and what was that like for you as everything went bananas?
I was finishing up this book, and we were planning speaking engagements with my speaking bureau and publisher, and I was in Europe a bunch doing workshops, and here too, and yeah, things were. I had a bunch of professional sport teams and athletes and organizations that still paid me a lot of money to work with their staff and their players, and I was, I mean, I was busy as can be in my personal life, which I think is important. My oldest son is a college baseball coach, and so still does, which we can get into what happened there. My middle son, I have three kids, 2 boys and a girl, and my middle child was in his 3rd year at Rutgers Medical School. and, my daughter, who was starting her own business so she could care less about what anybody has to say about anything, she's doing her thing. Yeah, so when all that happened, my publisher dropped me, not only as a publisher, because I basically came out and said something's going on here that's not right, and I'm not buying into it, and explore for yourself, which I recommend that people do my entire career. Please explore everything for yourself. Don't believe what people are saying. I said that about me 10 minutes ago. Don't believe what I'm saying. That's how I don't think anyone should believe what anyone says. They should explore all matters for themselves. So I said that and was thus censored, and I lost all my social media platforms, my publisher, my speaking bureaus, my relationships with organizations and sport teams. It all came crashing down in a split second, and I will literally never forget within. Before I was censored, kicked off Twitter, I was just being absolutely just decimated with hate stuff. And my children, who were, let's say, they're 34, 32, and 29 now, so do the math. They were then reading the stuff about their father, which was very difficult for them to read, as you can imagine. But I would say within 3 days, I'm probably going to get emotional saying this. I'm definitely going to lose it right now. I got 3 text messages from all of them telling me how proud they were. So that was the end of any concern about anything.
Wow. Amazing.
I would admit, even though I wasn't going to not be myself, and I was not going to say what I thought was right, I could care less. Having them all recognize that and send me these notes on their own, randomly, not even together, separately, which I obviously still have. Yeah, the 3 of them, just that alone, I was on the right track. I was never going to not do that anyway, but that was, I don't know, it was a turning point, but it gave me more energy. Let's put it that way. It looked like it gave me a massive boost. And so then I just came back here, and I had time to figure out how my 2 sons were going to not take the thing, get through their careers, which you can always outsmart ignorance. So they were easy. It was easy. It wasn't even difficult. That was the easiest thing ever. It continues to be easy for my son, who's a surgeon now. He's a surgeon. Never, he has a son who's obviously pure as snow, about to have another child.
Unbelievable. That's so great.
Yeah, he's one of these. He's a surgeon who understands and is there to help people when they get massacred, so to speak. When he's there for the right reasons. He's not perfect. No one is, but he's close. He's close. And his son was just here for 2 days with Liz and me, so we just had. I'm exhausted, by the way. that's crazy. He's not even 2 yet. He's got me running all over the place, this guy. Anyway, so then what I did was I went back to this book I was writing, True Self, and I included some very subtle hints about the pandemic, which was interesting because I didn't have a publisher. So, I mean, yeah, and I would recommend anyone who wants to write a book, write a self-published book. I was at the mercy of Simon & Schuster. It was always a very difficult thing for me in my other books. This book, we did it on our own. We even have our own distribution company for it because I didn't want to use Amazon because they censored me too. So we set up our own distribution company. I mean, what was I thinking? It's been fantastic, and it gave me time to help Chelsea with her business. She has a clothing line, a pretty big clothing brand. So she was kicking that off, and I wanted to support her any way I could. We did a renovation on our house, which was cool, and I got involved in that with the builders, which was a cool experience. Got my hands dirty and got in there, and it was great. Built this office here even. So I used it wisely. And interestingly enough, while a lot of the organizations and teams fired me, a lot of the players and staff wanted to stay in touch with me. So in that kind of way, the relationships that were of the heart really remained, which is fantastic. So I wouldn't change it for anything. So that's the long answer. And then I met people like you, obviously, the Zeck family, obviously became very close to me. Alec and Derek and Ali in the beginning, and others as well. So it's been a revelation, actually. It's been just fine. And we were there we helped a lot of people who were injured. I continue to do my best in that realm. Help people see through it who didn't want to buy in, and how they, just like my own children did, navigate through that. So it's been wild, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I don't like what happened to the world, of course, but it's kind of par for the course if you think about it. So
what a beautiful story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. It's amazing. I had a similar kind of, I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. And it's when 2020 hit, and I realized, came out of for about 2 weeks, it was like, oh, the world's ending. And, maybe there really is a boogeyman out there. And then it's like, oh, no, that's not going on. But, this is next level of tyranny. And then I couldn't not speak out. I did speak out, and I paid a lot of price for that, kind of like what you're saying, the bloodbath on Twitter and all of that kind of thing. And then the people that came forward, they're like, thank you for speaking out. Thank you for being a voice of reason. I can't talk like that, but thank you. I'm glad you are. And so there was enough affirmation, kind of like people call it a, wink from God or breadcrumbs, that gave me the courage to keep going despite the bloodbath, which persists to this day. So many relationships went the way of the dodo in that. So yeah, that's amazing to hear your story. It's one of great integrity, right? That you lost your publisher. How many people would have done everything to stay within the narrative. You see, all my favorite so-called spiritual authors, that's exactly what they did, right? And there's this kind of whitewash, or they look dissociated now, and they never did speak out if they knew anything, or they just bought it all. Who knows? So kudos to you, Garrett.
Well, even worse on the spiritual community, many of them requiring this medical procedure to attend their events. I just was.
I know.
I mean, it was. I mean, what? Like how could that even? It's quite interesting how someone could justify that. But again, they're doing the best they can based on their understanding about this boogeyman that doesn't exist, this outside, these invaders that don't exist, that could never exist and have never existed. It's literally impossible. I mean, it's again, that there would have to be an outside for that to be true. There's no outside, so that means there's no outside invaders. And this lie doesn't only subsist in germ theory. It subsists in nationalism and how we look at borders and all these crazy things that have just completely that are completely incongruent to our experience. And it's important that we see that. The wars, conflicts, I mean, it's just, how do we justify these things? They're not justifiable. How do we justify treating someone differently because they come from a different place that's not even a thing? There's no different place. There's one place that's here. I mean, we've lost the whole plot. And I just feel like our mission, or mine at least, is to do my best to remind people of that, whether it's relative to physical health, peace of mind, how we treat others, so to speak, so-called others, that's in quotes. That's important. That doesn't mean we can't speak up fervently on matters that are important to us, because I do. And sometimes with me, people mistake my directness, which is part of a trained personality. I don't even like it, by the way. I don't even like this about myself. Sometimes my directness, or sometimes I could, what's the right way to say it? I could raise my voice when I don't want to. I don't even want to do that. But this is all my training. This is how, going back to my parents, my father trained this meek little boy who was clearly a good athlete, to be a rough and tumble hockey player. You know, that's kind of my training. But it's not who I am. So sometimes that can creep into how I say things or how I act. When it does, I can't stand it, if I'm honest. However, that's still, so sometimes people get the wrong idea based on that, rather than where I'm pointing, if that can make any sense. And it's the same with you. Like, you have your training, and that could get in the way of where you're pointing. It's all of us. It's our training. Like, we're trained monkeys to a certain extent. And as a grandparent, I didn't notice this in my children, because clearly I was busy, I was active, I was working my rear end off. I was more concerned about other things, but I can really see this in my grandson. I could really see his heart. And it's not just him. It's all year and a half old. It's all children. It's not just him. But I could see their heart in him. And I'm always saying to myself, sometimes Jackson and Kira, our kids, my son and his wife, will go home after having dinner here or something. The hospital where Jackson works is close to here. And I'll get emotional, because I want to see Cameron preserve this giving, loving, free, young boy who's just a pure expression of consciousness, of love, of happiness, of peace. I want to see that preserved, and I mourn for the fact, sorry, that it's not even in him. And his parents are totally on board with what we're talking. Like they are the most with it. You can't be more with it, young parents, than them. You can be the same, but not more. But even then, I'm concerned because he's going to go to school. He's going to play sports. He's going to be in this club or that club. He's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to go to college. And I could go off on this, and I feel this way about all children, and I know it was done to me. And I'm doing my best, despite my personality, which isn't always perfect, to point back to what is perfect. So sometimes that gets in the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I think it's important.
Yeah, it's beautiful. If I could offer one thing that might be good, because you actually have to learn to be in the world in order to be not of the world. So it's necessary for children to fully develop all of the lies inside themselves, because you can't take that away if you don't have it first. It's how it's designed.
I want to make sure I understand. To develop the what? The lies?
The lies, the misconceptions, the not knowing who you are, the identifying with seeking and goals, and I'll be happy when XYZ happens, and like you need to get fully into the world in order to be disillusioned by it.
So what you're saying, yeah. You can't insulate them from that. They have that's the opposite. That's the same mistake on the opposite side of the spectrum, so to speak.
Yeah, they literally can't awaken if they don't develop that. That's what's wrong with a lot of humanity, right? They haven't developed a self-concept. They haven't developed a self-lie. And that seems good, but it's only good on the other side.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting and well said. How you said that. That's actually comforting. Isn't the perfect word, but it kind of is. So thank you for that. That makes sense because, I mean, even in having a name and saying, who's that on the phone? Cammy, he'll say. So that's what you're saying. Yeah, he has to develop this identity with the body, so to speak, and with the separate self, so to speak, to realize he's not the separate self. Without that, you'll ultimately flounder. So that's you're right. Good. So so preserve is probably the wrong word. I don't want him to preserve that. I want him to always be able to access that and know which one is true.
Yeah. And you'll always be the beacon of that for him. So how fortunate to have you in his life and parents that agree.
I think I'm the beacon of that for his father first and for his mother also. And then, by the way, Liz is too. I mean, she gets this without even knowing how to talk about it. Ultimately, she's probably even more of that than me, to be honest. But I think my role, and anybody who's a grandparent that's watching this is just my take on that. I think that I've got to be that for them, for my kids. And then that will then allow them to do the same for their kids. Sure, I could be this. I mean, ultimately, this house is just a place for him to come and feel comfortable and get away a little bit. We do some fun things. We do some crazy stuff, wrestling and hitting golf balls and, in the pasture and riding the golf cart around, and he's driving it. He's not even 2 years old yet. And where else is he going to do that? At his grandfather's house. But ultimately, I think for us, and you'll see this someday, I think it's ultimate that we set that example for our children, and then they'll carry that forward.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Yes, Steve said that's why a family that instills a healthy foundation before a child ventures into the world is so important. Exactly. Yeah. Ideal. Because it's not a given, right? No matter what you start out with, it's going to take work
when my daughter who got married here last September, um, when I gave the speech at her wedding, um, I talked about our home and welcome, as Steve said, as the foundation. But I wasn't. It was only sounded good because the wedding was here, but I was really talking about the foundation. And both Liz and I, as many people, had very turbulent foundations. They're very rocky. We didn't have foundations of home. So ultimately, that was our mission as a couple. That was our clear mission. And yeah, and I said it during Chelsea's speech. I spoke during Chelsea's wedding. During my speech, I spoke to Liz first, and I said, somehow we pulled it off. I mean, we did it. We did it. I don't know how we did it. She did it. Mainly, she did it. The home part, she did. But yeah, I think that this is a very important factor, and it's not a place. It's not the house. It's not the. It's something as far as Steve was indicating. It's the foundation of home. That the knowing of your own being, of freedom, of love. We could talk about parenting all day long. My mother was a bastion of freedom. My father was disciplinarian. I don't think the disciplinarian route will ever work for anyone at any time in any chance. Zero chance. I think an environment of freedom where children are free to be themselves and express themselves fully and freely, no matter what, is ultimately where loving behavior springs. I've taught this to sport teams for years because sport teams are rife with rules. Here's the rules.
Yep.
And there's no question to me that the most so-called successful franchises in colleges, at college and pro sport, have the fewest rules. It's not even close. It's not even a discussion. There's no argument in this. And what you also find on those teams, in those organizations, are the most loving group. So you see the best behavior, the most loving behavior. Our society has so got this backwards. The more rules that they think, the better behavior. Yet we keep adding rules and laws and mandates, and behavior keeps getting worse. And we haven't caught on to the fact that those rules are binding people up. So if you're not free to be yourself, you will always behave errantly. So it is an environment of freedom that brings out the best in people. And I've taught this for years, and it's during the so-called COVID thing, when I got fired by these teams, I remember writing a tweet saying clearly they didn't understand my message because I took their money and maybe I should give it back because they didn't get. If they're firing me for what I'm saying, if they're binding me up or they're limiting my freedom, so to speak, which they can't do, but they think they are. They're just limiting their own, by the way. Can't limit mine. Then clearly they didn't understand what the hell I was saying. They were just in it for the results, which is a mistake. Anyway, that got a good laugh from my audience when I said it.
No doubt. Yeah, that's. I had such a big talk with someone. I raised my son. I really want to get to natural health, but I'll say this: the last thing. I raised my son. You know, everyone's telling me, "Oh, you need to punish him. He does something wrong. You need to punish him. You need to reward him."
Yeah.
And it took me 1.5 tries of that, and I realized it was such a dead end for everybody. For me, for him, it was absolutely heartless. It went against all of my inner knowing. And so I didn't punish him. And it's not that there weren't wrongs. There were wrongs, but and there was one really big wrong. And him and I were just discussing it the other day. And when I didn't punish him, what he did was make this massive inner adjustment. Like all by himself, he just literally became a different person. We didn't, I just didn't. I knew it doesn't work. right? Like punishment is the same as reward. You're just withholding the reward,
Yeah.
and you're making them completely externally referenced. So then he could push against me. If I punished him, then he can keep having a war with me. But in this case, he just grew up independently, like a miracle.
We have all these examples, like you're saying, about the knowing that we share, that we're one being. This all stems from a knowing of self. We can describe that knowing differently, but it all stems from that. Last night, I'll just tell you this very briefly. We were having dinner. My oldest son was here for the night, and Liz, Cameron, and my son was working in the hospital. Kira was out with friends. So Cameron was kind of sitting in his, the chairs you hook onto the table, and somehow he's getting restless in his seat, and he has bare feet, and he ends up putting his feet on the table. So his feet are on the table. So Ryan's like, feet on the table, like, I'm like, I said to him, are your feet on the table? Right, my oldest son. I said, your feet on the table? He says, no. I said, are my feet on the table? No. Are your mother's feet on the table? No. I said, Cameron's going to get the message. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Don't say a word, because if you say a word about his feet on the table, those feet are staying on the table. Leave it be. Shut up. Don't say anything. And then but we just don't. People don't know how to coach to a certain extent. Ryan, by the way, actually knows how to coach. He's a college baseball coach. He's the one guy that knows. But it was just, instead of punishing, and what am I going to do? Send my 1.5-year-old grandson to upstairs to his crib or something because he has to be on the table.
But they do that, right? Time out. They have like little timers.
So fast. It was a nothing. It's a nothing. It's a zero. He's not going to be worried about. It's a nothing. So anyway, to natural health or whatever you just said.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that story. That's so cool. Diana's in the chat. She says she agrees kids should have freedom of expression. Wondering, though, allowing expressing anger and disrespect towards parents is a disservice to them, though. I did go through this, Diane. My son picked up from other family members how to treat me badly. And it was a kind of crucible for me to go through and again, to, keep realizing that punishing him for it was a dead end, or making him sorry was a dead end, or all of that kind of thing. So he straightened himself out, and that's in the end, the result is kind of what matters. But yeah, I mean, I still obviously had the right to protect myself. What would you say, Garrett, about that?
Yeah, I think that there's really no, you're either going to discipline your kids for that lack of respect, or you're going to carry on despite this lack of respect. And there's just no evidence. And if anyone has evidence of this, bring it to me and I'll reconsider my opinion. But I don't see any evidence that disciplining for a lack of respect, and by the way, disciplining, the idea that you're an authority figure over that other person, is the ultimate lack of respect. So you're going to actually treat a lack of respect with a lack of respect. Okay. So there's no evidence at all in society and families, anywhere I've seen in sport teams and organizations, that is productive. There's no evidence of it. In fact, the evidence is glaringly the opposite. So I would suggest carrying on with life, and supporting and loving your children no matter what they're doing. Now, that obviously, if there is some physical thing going on, you need to, protect your, I'm not thinking that's the case here. But again, to me, those type of altercations only occur because you are treating a lack of respect with a lack of respect, and on and on and on, and then they ultimately blow up. So we all have been there. I can see, even in this little guy, my grandson, every once in a while, he does something to try to get a rod. You could see it. There's a little devil in him a little bit sometimes. Like he's trying to push those boundaries, and it's very interesting how we treat that. Now, I'm relatively a pro at that now. I wasn't as a pro with my first son. None of us are, and we're also subject to how we were brought up. As I said, my father was quite the disciplinarian. So I would say I got better at this as my children grew up. So I think Chelsea grew up with the most freedom. Um, um, and sometimes I apologize to my older son for that, because sometimes I wasn't at my best. I didn't practice what I preached. Chelsea would call me out on it when I didn't practice what I preached. This book is called Still Power, my first book, and she would hold the book up and say, "Still power, Dad." Like, okay, Joe, that's true story. She did that a bunch of times, and she was right. Anyway, so I think that we should look within our own hearts and figure out. I'll tell another story very quickly. My middle son, I can remember being mad at him twice in his life. Twice. Now the other two, a little bit more, but twice in his entire life. One time, I went to pick him up at his friend's house. He's probably 15 or 16, maybe 5 minutes from here. And it was around Halloween time. And I'm pulling down the street to get him, and I see toilet paper and the trees and all this stuff. I get him. He gets in the car, and as I'm driving in, I said, "Look at all this stuff." I said, "This is just disrespecting nature, disrespecting property. This is just not okay." And I looked at him, and I realized that he and his friend did it. He didn't say it, but I could look at his face. He didn't have the heart to say, "Oh yeah, Dad." He couldn't lie to me, but he didn't say I did it. But I'm like, I stopped the car. Wait a second. Did you guys do this? I go, "Get the fuck out." Get out. He goes, "What do you mean get out?" I said, "Clean it up." I said, "I'm going to come back in 2 hours. Just clean it up." And I left. I said it very calmly. I didn't get mad. I went out. I came back in 2 hours. It was cleaned up. He got in the car. I never mentioned it again.
Nice.
That's it. I didn't punish him. I didn't yell. I said, "Get the fuck out. Clean it up." I remember saying, "Get the fuck out." I probably had never said that word to him before at that. I remember he heard that out of my mouth for the first time. So he kind of knew I wasn't happy for sure. But I didn't punish him. He got back in the car. We came home. We had dinner. I didn't even mention it to Liz. Nobody knew about it. So
amazing. So clean, right?
That was not. It was enough. It was, and he talks about it sometimes. He remembers it significantly. It was a big impact on him. How like, what was I thinking to do that? Like, how did I think that was right to do? Like, well, I don't know. But clearly, that's okay. Sometimes we make mistakes, and then we clean them up and we move on. It's good.
And sometimes they come from beyond as well, right? Like that there's something, when you don't premeditate and there's nothing in it for you, you don't have anything to gain. Like you're trying to be good enough because you've got a good kid who doesn't put toilet paper on trees and stuff like that. And it can, it can be a little bit more surgical. Like it's just a clean cut, and then they do the work, and then it's over. Because those things can go on to the future, and you keep bringing it up. Well, when you did that, and you're bad, and you're wrong, and it was programming them.
And look, I did a lot worse than that. So it's I have no grounds to really, whatever. It's just I was actually shocked that he did. Like, what's going on here? And but that I didn't. That was it. That's it.
Right. Oh, thanks for sharing that story. That's very cool. And no worries, Diane. We love your extra thoughts around here. And she's agreeing. Yeah. And okay, this is the last comment, and we'll spend a little bit of time. Do you still have time? About 15 minutes left? Okay, fantastic. Steve said, if a child is doing something dangerous, then it behooves the parent to get their attention, of course. And it's not that you don't pay attention. You pay all your attention. They need that stuff, right? That's what a healthy child grows on, attention. But it's the punishment, the extending a reward and withholding the reward and extending the reward and making it all about you, when in reality it's all about them, right? You didn't have children to make you great. It's the other way around. Yeah. Teachable moments. Yeah, exactly. That's beautiful. All right. Well, you and I met because I was actually in upstate New York, and I had blown the Canadian border post-pandemic Nobody was traveling anywhere. That's what the border guard told me. And I drove 3,000 kilometers from here to upstate New York, and we hung out with Andy Kaufman and a bunch of other, truthers, for lack of a better word, and people who were like, "Oh my God, what's happening in the world?" And I heard your name several times over the course of that, maybe six. In the end, it was about 2 weeks that I was there. And he was singing your praises, and then I heard Alec Zeck talking, and then when everybody came forward in the no virus world, you were right there in championing this position that nothing outside of yourself makes you sick. And so that was so cool. And then fast forward to 2026, and I was looking at my friend Jesse Hall's post, and he reposted your list of things not to do when you want to be healthy, things to avoid if you want to be healthy. And there on your list was two things that made me go like this, because it's very rare. And it comes back to, that I actually did a podcast with Alec, a little bit of trying to coax him out a bit. I have to admit, a truth at all cost, right? Where you're literally willing to go the whole distance for truth, not most of the distance, or that there's a convenient truth and all of that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so, sorry for this very long introduction, but Alec hosted Garrett Smith, who my audience knows by now. He's been on the channel a bunch of times.
Good man right there.
What was that? Sorry.
I said, good man right there.
Right. And so then I started listening to Garrett. I listened once, and I'm like, oh wow, I think I have to listen to that again. I listen again, and I'm like, I hope this isn't true. And then I had to listen a third time. It's like, oh my God, I have to talk to this person. So I went to Alec and asked, could you introduce me, please? And by then, Alec had been turned away from him, and convinced that what he was saying was wrong. Why? Because the natural health freedom movement swarmed him, who all had something to lose by greater truth coming forward. Now, I'm not faulting Alec. I love him like anything, like a brother. But he never went back on that trail. And I couldn't turn away, because I've had health problems since trying to survive cancer 30 years ago. I had a stage 4 lymphoma. I did live, but I never totally healed the toxicity. So I'm still looking. I'm still, needing to break ground. And I've had the most transformation of my entire life. Had I known now what I knew then, I wouldn't have fought for my life for 3 years. I know that for a fact. And so I was so excited when you had on your list to avoid vitamin A and vitamin D, because no one talks like that, right? The natural health freedom movement was the first to say, you need to take all gobs of vitamin D to be healthy if you're not going to poisonally inject yourself instead. And, so the PSYOPs, what I ultimately woke up to, the natural health freedom PSYOP is much bigger even than the main one is. There's more lies, more weapons.
Same misunderstanding. They're all a bunch of materialists. Like it's just your opinion's better. We need to get to the root. But okay, I got you. So we need to get to the root, and then we would notice these things, and we would not. Also, by the way, we wouldn't claim that we're right. We're expressing where we are on the journey. And that's what's great about Garrett Smith, by the way, in my opinion. He's willing to change his mind. Now, when you give me someone who's willing to change his or her mind, I'll listen to that. That's a journey worth looking at. So I'm going to be somewhat critical now at Weston Price. I mean, they haven't changed their mind in how many years? I mean,
right.
you come on, you cannot be still. So that's sorry, but that's a cult. I mean, that's a cult. That's not. They're living to try to do justice. It's existing to try to do justice to the founder who's no longer here, as opposed to the truth. So no, I'm not interested in that. No, I'm not saying Weston Price doesn't say some valuable things. They're not. There's a lot of things about Weston Price where I think they're on the money, but there's almost equal now where I think they're off the money. And I think that we should look at those things. They're not, just because Weston Price says it doesn't make it true. I mean, come on. Just because, I think I might have said this to you in jest, I don't even know, but just because the Hadza tribe in Africa is eating liver doesn't make that tribe right. What
Yes.
made them right? Like, they could be wrong to eat liver, or they could be so hungry that they'll eat anything. I don't know, but just because they eat liver, because tribes in the wild eat the liver first, somehow that makes the liver healthy. That doesn't. They could be wrong. They're not. I don't. It's almost funny to think that they are right. Like, no, they're not right about everything. They were human beings, and human beings are wrong a lot. So, just like we are wrong, it's okay. I could be wrong also, but it's just interesting how we could. Yeah. So anyway, vitamin D. Oh my goodness, vitamin D pills and vitamin A now. Vitamin A has been reducing vitamin A in my diet has been absolutely probably the most diable health thing I've done in the last 10 years.
Amazing. Good for you. That's so powerful. Yeah. Yeah. I was instantly magnetized to you because there he is saying something new. And having learned and not having that to me is, I have the ultimate respect for someone who's willing to say that I've changed my mind. I used to think this, and now I think this because of further evidence. And it seems like the simplest thing on earth, but it's so uncommon.
Yeah, it's just that's the beauty of, frankly, that's the beauty of understanding the journey of self-realization. What we're doing is we're looking at, let's just call it concepts, theories, or beliefs. We're looking at them, concepts, theories, beliefs, and we're saying, like, step by step, we're saying, do I know for certain that this is true? And if I don't know for certain that this is true, then why am I living by it? Why am I living this way? Why am I beholden to it? So really, do I know for certain that eating carrots improves my vision? Now, I've been told that since I was 5 years old. Where's my evidence of this? I have really good vision, I guess, for a 64-year-old. I don't eat a lot of carrots. I mean, where's my evidence of this thing? Where's my evidence of this theory? I don't have evidence of it. Now, I could eat a shitload of carrots and then see what happens to my vision, but I don't know that my vision could really get better. I guess I wear glasses, these now, to see close, you know what I'm saying? But far, I could see golf balls 350 yards away, no problem. So, like, I don't know. I don't. So I think we should examine these things if we're willing, and look at them and say, wow, maybe I'm been off about that. Maybe I was wrong that eating this much raw dairy is such a great idea. I love the taste of it. Oh my God, Liz makes a homemade raw ice cream that especially when it was first made, I could literally eat the whole gallon of it easily. I can eat a lot, easily. But then how do I feel the next morning? How do I feel the next day when I'm working out or playing golf or running around or whatever I'm doing? Never good. So maybe it's not my injuries from hockey. Maybe it's something else that's going on. So anyway, Garrett, I think it was Garrett Smith that was the first one I noticed. Him and I told you, him and Grant
Jenner. Yeah, who's been on this channel as well.
Were the first two that I heard talking about this, and I thought that Grant's story was captivating enough to take a look. It was captivating enough. Is this guy nuts? Like, what's going on here? Like, this sounds pretty interesting. So, but it's never good at me. It's never good enough for me to just hear his story on a pod. I then contacted him. I'm going to talk to this guy. I'm going to email him. If he's willing to talk to me, if I've got to pay him a few bucks, that's okay. If I've got to donate to his charity, which I ended up doing, I don't remember what it was, that's okay too. And we spoke, I would say, 2 times for an hour each. I found his story, and that's the way I can kind of decipher, is this guy full of crap? Like, I could be wrong still, by the way. He could fool me. But I didn't think I was fooled. I don't say, I'm not saying I agree with everything how he lives, but which I shouldn't. But I thought it was enough. And then Garrett's comments on it really struck me. So I really started looking at it, and I started looking at. I actually, talking about vitamin A real quickly. I remember when Paul Saladino first came out with his Heart and Soil supplements.
I know of it. Yes.
Okay, so my oldest son, the baseball coach, bought some of these supplements. He's into health and being strong. He wants his players to do the same and all that. And when he took the liver supplements, about a week after he got them, he called me up and said, "Dad, what do you think of this? I feel like crap when I take these. Like it really makes me sick." And I'm like, "Let me think about this. Like, just don't take them. Just put it on hold. But let me think about that." And this is right around the time where I'm talking to Grant, and I'm like, "Holy, Ryan is vitamin. His liver is already vitamin A saturated." I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I don't say things perfectly.
No, you're right. Exactly. That's where vitamin A stores. Yeah.
Vitamin A saturated. So that's why I could take it and not right away at least, feel that way. He takes it almost right away, has a reaction. And I'm thinking about his diet and some other health stuff. That makes sense. We got to clean up. You got to just stop the vitamin A, So it really started to hit me. And on our family chat, I start sharing it with Liz and the kids and their spouses and stuff. And we've all been looking at it. And my daughter, both my daughter and her baby, her daughter's 2 months old today. She's born May 20th. About a month or so ago, started to develop a rash on their face, both of them. I'm like, "Chell, that's vitamin A right there. I mean, you got to listen to me. Like, come on." And she's like, "I think so." I didn't like. I almost got too. She's like, "I think you're right about this." And Nick, her Chelsea's husband, who's a great guy, my son-in-law, he's like, I've been telling her, because Nick will listen to me before Chelsea, which is kind of funny on this health stuff. And she's like, I've been telling her. Well, then what am I going to eat? I'm like, I don't know, but not that. Not 3 eggs in the morning. No. So anyway, she cleaned that up, and obviously the breast milk. That's why her daughter was having the same issues. So yeah, the vitamin A thing, and then the nickel thing. I heard you talk about it in one of the things you have coming up. That was great where you brought that up on one of my social media posts, and I asked you about it, so I learned something more. Because as soon as you said that, I think you told me you should explore nickel toxicity too. Didn't you say that? Something like that? I'm like, yeah, can you call me? Tell me more about this. I think you're right about that. Like, that makes sense. And then you taught me stuff like, of course, it was obvious to me that my oatmeal wasn't a great idea. So yeah, it's interesting how you could hear something and it makes perfect sense to you if you're no longer predisposed to dismiss things that are contrary to what you've been doing. Like we're all a little bit that way, but we have to break that habit. And I mentioned this earlier. There's an easy way to break that habit. So if anyone listening to this, watching this, still has a little bit of this habit, which I think we all do to a certain extent at times, this is how you do it. I'm going to give everyone the secret to breaking the habit of being closed-minded or easily offended and then not listening. So this is the easiest thing in the world. So the minute we read something or hear something or see something that triggers upset or frustration or taking offense or whatever within us, that trigger is actually not coming from what the person said, a different opinion. It's coming from your old, stale belief system. So, because clearly, if something is, you can't get triggered when you know the truth.
Right.
So if you know the truth, that won't trigger you. So if someone was to come on here right now, jump on the screen and say, Garrett, you are full of it. Vitamin A is so good for us. It's vital. You should have a gazillion milligrams of vitamin A a day. You're an idiot. That wouldn't bother me at all. I know the truth. That can't bother me. You can say whatever you want. Have a nice time. Someone wants to come on and say, Garrett, we are separate beings. That's who we are. You are talking heresy right here. That wouldn't bother me. You can say it. You know? So if I'm bothered, I am not bothered by what someone says. I am bothered by the fact that I believe the lie. And the minute you know that, you'll be interested in not believing the lie anymore. It's just everyone thinks that the trigger is external. It's because of that guy's a dick. He's saying bad things. No, you won't be triggered by that guy if you know the truth. You're triggered and insecurity arises because you've been fooled. Not intentionally, you haven't done something, it's not your fault, and it's not anyone's fault, but you've been hoodwinked. Okay, thank you for telling me that. Now let's look at it. This is not hard. It's right there. That insecurity is arising because we're overlooking the truth. That's it.
Exactly.
Everyone would know that, then we would be so open to what people have to say. We wouldn't bring it on. And there would be no censoring. There would be no one would be kicked off platforms. It would become pure freedom, pure love, and we would all be living healthier and in more harmony. So it's actually really easy when you look at it, and if you understand that, what that trigger actually is. You're just believing the lie, or you wouldn't be.
Exactly. Yeah, the truth doesn't trigger you. It can shock you. I know I was shocked. I definitely went into shock, even though I immediately started making the changes because making the experiment, not because I believed it. And this is something that the Garrett, the two Garretts, you guys definitely share. He's not saying, oh, here's the truth, believe me. He's saying, here's what I found in the research and the experiments I made inside myself and with all of these people, and we're noticing these patterns.
Yeah.
And certain patterns aren't true for everyone, but we won't get into the weeds of it. Maybe I'll have you on another time if you're open to it, to really.
I think that the weeds of that is a good one. Because that drives me. Yeah.
Right, where they say, oh, it's a poison for you and it's a nutrient for me. It's like, no, dude.
It's just like two lions in the wild should eat differently. I mean, no one would think that. They eat the exact same diet. It's different for you and it's different for me to the extent that we were poisoned and the extent that we're toxic. That's why it's different. All poisons, we would be, the same diet would be good for everyone. Let's be serious. This is crazy talk. I mean, but this again goes back to the belief in separation. You are your individual. I am. We are not. You know what I'm saying? So it actually all comes down to the ultimate lie. But it's funny, like I said, people like the two lions in the wild eat different things. Are you out of what are you? Of course we wouldn't eat differently. You're not different than me. We are the same. However, we inherit toxicity and we acquire toxicity at different rates and at different quantities, different toxicities. Sure, and that will obviously then create the appearance of this diet's better for you than me. But if we were to eliminate these toxicities, so to speak, then that would not be the case, and there would be one diet for human beings, just like there's one diet for animals. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It is all based on the belief, foundationally on the belief in separation. We're individuals. We're not a singular being. This is your experience is different than my experience. I mean, this is what we all say. I've never experienced prejudice like this so-called black guy experience. Like, what are we talking about? What are we going to solve by that? No, I can experience exactly what you've experienced, and because your experience is my experience. And we know this. We know this because we could watch a movie where we don't even know anything, any of the character, and we could cry about the movie it's a movie, or we could watch the news about somebody who's been in an unfortunate accident or something, some tragedy befell a family, and it could deeply impact us. Why is that? Because we share a being. If we didn't share a being, it wouldn't impact us. And in fact, those types of experiences impact those who know we share a being the most. The most.
Amazing. Amazing. So great, Garrett. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's yeah, I knew it would be good. And I did take a chance that day to put nickel in there because I didn't know where you were coming from. And I know these things can kind of blow up. And when you immediately said call me, I'm like, wow, I had a whole new
Thank you. I mean that has been a thank God that you did that, because that's another area of my conditioning I needed to, thanks to you, I broke down. Like, obviously, oh my goodness, I'm now on a wild goose chase for some for some what was I going to say, for some organic processed bread or whatever you call it. Yes, am I saying it right? Yeah. Like, I'm on that. I mean, how do anyway, I don't eat a lot of bread, but it was funny because I had a roast beef sandwich for lunch, and I have this bread that it says organic wheat flour, and it's white. So that means it's got to be refined. It can't be that color, I think, right? Most likely. It doesn't say refined though, because the reason they don't put refined, because I don't think people are going to buy it if it says refined.
Right. Well, that's the conditioning of natural health world, that that's all bad and wrong. Refined means wrong, and refined means clean, right? Now I eat refined coconut oil only for the small amounts that I use, and refined salt only, right? Like the psyop of, oh, your salt needs to be full of garbage to be good for you. So like,
Another one said organic wheat flour, which I think is refined, and then it also had whole wheat flour. Both.
They often are mixed these days.
I said, no, you see this is how you're going to know. It's not going to say refined because they think it's a bad word. It's just classic. But I would never, like, without you contacting me that day, I would never have even realized what I just said. Like, I would have been eating the wrong one, just like I was eating oatmeal. I was eating the most clean, so-called clean oatmeal there was. I think actually Garrett even recommended it a couple of years ago, the one that I was eating.
It was a potential, but many people had problems with it, which is so funny. Even him, he didn't really like oatmeal. He didn't really like beans, so it wasn't part of his normal, at least not a huge amount. I already knew it. I had already been cutting back on the high nickel foods, thinking it was something about fiber, but it was actually the nickel that was the nemesis there. So yeah, it's so fun to know people like you. You are a rare soul. Thank you for being out there doing what you do. I can't wait to hear and see, what comes of this next iteration of your life. It's already been so powerful post-pandemic, and
well,
yeah,
yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Look forward to connecting more. And so thank you everyone for joining us, and some good comments and questions in the chat. Just quickly, I'll let you know that again, I have Banjo Glass coming up Monday. He's an amazing artist. This is like the cultural anthropologist in me is going to have so much fun with this conversation. It's our second one. And Breath of Fresh Air is denickeled 3. We're going to focus on PEA, palmitoyl ethanolamide. Yay, I said it all in one go. That's with Dagmar Stansova. And then the open house for my coaching training is coming up August 5th. And it's a good time to sign up and get the details to that if it calls you, your helper who wants to help with a lot more purpose, and not just making a policy saying no, because that's effectively, it's a good step, but it becomes useless in the face of purpose. So that's what I'm up to. And thanks again, Garrett. I'd love to have you on again. And okay, fantastic. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I'm going to play us out with a clip by my son, who also played the first one, just in case you're curious. Just a shout out to him. All right.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.